Hello everyone. I'm home from work a little early and have had some ideas on my mind to share a little bit more about this worldview, where on one hand I'm looking at how I look at the spirituality, and on the other hand I'm looking at how I look at science or natural law. So I think for some reason people have the idea that it is either creation or evolution that's happening around us. So not only that, but people want to kind of pick either or, such as either God created everything or there's no such thing as God and everything just evolved for no actual reason. And so I'm kind of right in the middle, and this is where again I recommend Mark Passio's videos, especially on natural law, because he's also saying the same thing. Because if you're the person that only believes in God and you only believe what's in the book and this type of thing, then you're more of the vulnerable and gullible type. You'll believe anything, right? So we don't want to go there and just, let people tell us this stuff without knowing what we're talking about. So that's where we're dealing with a lot of the unknown and the above and beyond. So we want to be really relaxed and flexible on what type of worldview or beliefs we have in that direction. Now, on the scientific end, you get people who are like, no such thing, everything is just a bunch of atoms and da-da-da, and just a really cold point of view. And so I think that's a little bit safer, because we recognize cause and effect. Like if, there's certain things that we need to have happen or not have happen to survive or to make things work. It's better off that we have a very realistic point of view. But the scientific mindset could be too skeptical to the point that it's shutting out any sort of truth that could pertain to spirituality. So on the spiritual side, you'll hear people say stuff like, I don't need science, I just need my Bible. That's a lie, and only to protect your identity, as if you don't want to sound as if you're not Christian enough or something by saying you believe in any degree of science that's going on out here. Well, we depend on science every day, and according to the story of Jesus, if he was a carpenter by any chance, he also relied on math and science to build those structures, right? So that's like science denial. So the scientific mindset, where we don't believe in God and things like that, want to deny that there's any such thing as God. But that's because of our definition of God. Because if we're looking at what God really is, it's conscious presence, and that we as a living system contain that component, which is conscious presence. So it's almost as if the scientific mindset that denies there's anything, no such thing as God and no such thing as spirit, it's like saying there's just really no such thing as us. We contain the same component. So like I was saying in my other video, there are three major components that we require to be a living universe, and that is the conscious presence, the spirit energy, and the vibration or the manifest, those two things coming together. So we have those three components and that type of thing. So I like these ideas. I think they kind of ring true on some level. Now, there's a book called God and the Evolving Universe, and when I saw that title, I was like, bingo! James Redfeild wrote that book. That's more of like an explanation of what he thinks going on. He explains metaphysical psychology quite a bit in that book, and I really appreciated that so much. And he's the one that wrote Celestine Prophecy. So he's actually a psychologist that eventually became a storyteller, and so I recommend that book to break down this very concept. Now, another book I've been talking about is the Urantia Book, and I really love some of their explanations for how things have been unfolding, because I feel like it also supports some of my ideas when they talk about how the world was created. And then, boy, I could go on and on, but let's stop back and look at where I was coming from. And I want to go back to the concept of God versus the evolving universe. And so I think I really laid down some important points in my last video about the three components of the universe and how they act on each other and bring about things in the long run. But that's a big topic. I mean, we can't really knock that out in 5 or 10 minutes or even 20, right? So that's a big topic. That's like a world of knowledge in itself about that type of thing. So anyways, I just want to kind of hit the nail on the head and just talk about what I think is the difference between creation and evolution, and maybe point out a few examples of that, and that they're really kind of happening in a simultaneous way is what's happening. So it's really both, you know, so it's both physical, it's both spiritual, it's both science, it's both, I was going to say spiritual again, but it's both, you know. And again, it comes back to discernment, so we have to acknowledge what we know and what we don't know. So what I'm sharing is more of an understanding, and you'll hear me say understanding because that may not be accurate as a form of knowledge, but because I'm developing my understanding, it's flexible and I can let it grow and change as I obtain new information or something that makes more sense. Okay, so anyways, the Urantia is talking about there's more and more planets kind of like Earth where as life develops, we go through phases of the plants and animals, and then something like a human. So, so I think we're mistaking the process of development for evolution, and so that's where what's happening on Earth. For example, the scientific community is saying it's been evolution. Somehow, we started off with a single cell organism, and in due time, it was more complex and more complex until we had plants and animals, different stages until we get humans. So it just seems like nature keeps on improving upon itself. So now the creation point of view is more that, okay, if the universe is one big system and it's connected by kind of like a neural network in a sense, that so what's happening is from the universal center, the information is being sent out to each galaxy, and from the galactic center, the information is sent out to each solar system. And so everything that's happening on Earth is based on more of a universal template. So there's a lot of universal laws that apply anytime you're in a living system like this that aren't. So it's like, it seems like nature is all of the laws of nature is natural law, but then when we break it down to what part is just the living universe, that's what we're dealing with, more the universal law, the things that are universal to us, that could be universal from planet to planet, to galaxy, see, that type of thing. So anyways, as we know in the scientific level, the conditions must be just right to get the life that we have here. And so gotta wonder where the blueprint came from. Well, that's what we're talking about, that universal template. That blueprint is coming from the universal center, the galactic center, and out onto Earth, and that's kind of what's helping everything to take the shape that it's taking, and that ultimately there were supposed to be human beings eventually. Now, so we come up through all these levels and stuff, and then, so for us especially, we're a vertebrate, and so we look at going from reptile to the warm-blooded to the human. And so I was talking about earlier, the Holy Trinity kind of corresponds with the development of our brain. And so this is where we might not be just experiencing evolution, but phases of development. Now, the reptile brain is the basic animal brain. That's the part of us that's just trying to survive and acts on instinct. But when animals on Earth became warm-blooded, they also came along with what they call the limbic brain, the secondary portion of the brain. That seems to be more of an emotional portion of the brain. And if you notice, a lot of times our furry friends are very emotional. You're just like, oh, so happy. And the animals seem to express so many emotions. That's what we love our animals, is also because they're capable of, seem to express a lot more love than, you know, our pet lizards do, right? So I'm always saying that. And I noticed that in birds too. Like, they're definitely a little more warm-hearted than a reptile. So it's funny. I kind of think a bird is like a warm-blooded reptile. So, so the warm-blooded animals are a lot more warm-hearted. That's what I've noticed. Now, the third phase of the brain is the neocortex. So that seems to correspond more on a mindal level. It seems to give us more ability to function as a mind. So it seems like those three things, the embodiment, the animal part of us corresponds more with that reptile brain, and the emotional, loving part of us seems to correspond more with that limbic brain, but the intellectual part of us corresponds more with that neocortex, and without that we wouldn't be able to have this this discussion, right? So as a baby, for example, we'll start out as a single cell in the mother's body and multiply, you know, like nobody says, wow, it sure looks like your baby's evolving in your belly there. You know, we say that it's growing and it's developing, but we don't say it's evolving from a single cell thing to a multiple complex organism. Okay, so like now back to the left versus the right. So the people that don't believe in God think everything is chaos and everything is random. And that's where we're failing to recognize that we are an organism. That means it's organized. So it's a bunch of matter that's organized in such a way that it can conduct business as a living system. Okay, so there's some organization in nature where in fact there is also a lot of chaos, and that's why we need that organization, because that way we can survive nature. And what it's doing to us, it would kill us if we didn't have that organization and all of this type of sacred geometry working on our behalf, right? So that's what's keeping us alive, is math and science being applied by the universe, right? Actually. So I just think this is a better point of view, is that what's happening on Earth is not just evolution, but an unfoldment of life. Phases of development is what is happening. The evolution is the adaptation and learning. So if we were able to go planet to planet, we would probably see different variations of humans, animals, plants, and they might have oceans and land masses and stuff like that. If we could find other planets, we should find those similar parallels, but and you might find out their culture is really different than ours, and their process of learning science and everything. Like they all kind of have something for science or religion. So, you know, that's why we have all these movies and TV shows about space travelers going to other planets, because, you know, we already have that idea. It's like, just think, if we went to other planets, they'd have people there, but they'd be like really weird looking, and they'd have like big bumps on their foreheads, and or they just might be big slimy creatures that are like, like, you know, like like Star Wars, you know, definitely a classic case. And then maybe even varying degrees, just like near human, just kind of like a Sasquatch thing, you know, or, you know, so there's all kinds of possibilities. That's where possibilities are seemingly endless, right? But that's just on the physical level. So, you know, so we're just dealing with the physical level when we're talking about a planet like Earth, because then, you know, between Earth and the universal center, there's like all these different levels of reality. And I kind of think, kind of like right here in the galaxy, like from, so I think Rosey and I agreed to this one too. So as the galaxy and the universe are probably very similar in that, you know, we have this type of movement. I'm not sure if helical is the proper term, going out this way or going out this way, out from the center, out to the edges, and back in through the flat part. So that matter might go out there and start its way back into the center. And so the planet, the material out here, so the stars, the solar system we're in, had to work its way from the outside of the galaxy to the center. So maybe this is what's happening. So this is a good question for science as well, is that are our stars coming to the center? Now, the more lower types of life would start out on the edge, and then as we're moving towards the center, if that's what's happening, we're experiencing a process of ascension. So not only did we have a little process of development so we could become a human being, but then we may also go through process of ascension that is twofold. That has to do with the way we're moving through our galaxy, or maybe the way our galactic system is moving through the universe. That could be bringing us back to the universal center in a way. So as we become more connected to the universal center, the more we ascend. So that could be why there's the idea of life on other planets could, you know, seem to exist in a higher reality. And now even let's see, I went to the Krishna place in Denver, and they were talking about something like that. There are other planets where they're in a higher level of existence, but life is easier. So when you're in a lower level of existence, life is harder. You know, we have to work harder to survive. So these ideas are out there, and I think they make sense. So that's, again, fun questions for science. But so the difference between creation and evolution. So the evolution is really more the learning. So that's where the Urantia book talks about self-evolution. That's when, so we've grown to the point where we recognize that we can learn and adapt. So we're not just in development anymore like a child, you know, like they develop till they're big enough to come into the world, and then they develop, like we have to feed them and keep them alive until they can stand up and talk. But then when they start getting into learning mode, they're going to first absorb what's going on in the environment. So we help them along the way, but then they get on the same playing field as everyone else, and that's where we get to go out and make our own choices. So so just like a child growing up to become an adult, I think life on Earth is experiencing that same thing collectively, where everyone in the world and our Earth system, you know, we've grown up to the point where, you know, nature is taking care of us all along to get us big enough to be able to think on our own and stuff. So now, this is where we can decide that we're going to learn more, and we're going to decide that we're going to change things around, and we're going to decide how we're going to act as a force in nature, because that's what conscious presence is, alongside all the other forces in nature. And so it's being able to build that perspective, you know. So there could be so many more levels to go through, you know. So we know there's been a long process of becoming humans. So there could be a longer process ahead of us, and then what should we become? So I was just listening to a video today talking about we're going through an ascension process, and I thought, oh, that makes sense. I was just contemplating about this and how, so on a physical level, we became more and more capable of getting where we could even have this discussion. But then as we go on, so physically, yes, we're ascending because of how we move through the galaxy physically, but also there could be the willingfulness of doing it. That's why, like, it doesn't just happen automatically, like we have to know it's happening. So that could be where a lot of our spiritual teaching kind of wants us to know about it, because that's how we can participate. Now, the creation aspect too is that, so the creative aspect of the universe is kind of bringing us into being, you know, through its thoughts and whatnot, but at the same time still having to deal with the pushback from nature. So the way I look at it is there was not necessarily some God going, and so let there be humans, and let them eat cute and fuzzy animals with cute little faces that are soft and fuzzy, and make it so that they poop and it smells really bad, you know. So that's where, you know, people that believe God creates and control everything, that's the kind of God that doesn't exist. And in fact, I don't even like the word God a whole lot, because if anything, it kind of reflects a primitive understanding of what God is or how things work. But I'm still going to use that word a little bit, and it's just a word that works for me. And universal conscious is another word, so some people think that sounds like hippie lingo, whatever. We're talking about the component in the living universe that is conscious presence. It's the one where all of it came from. And so some people are saying, okay, we're all God collectively. And in some level that's true, because we're part of the whole system. So we're part of the living universe in that way, but we're not our father and we're not our grandpa either. So, so the idea that there might be an original component in nature that would serve as conscious presence, but then as the universe is unfolding, then different points of conscious presence have been emerging and kind of trickling down. So that's where what we call Jesus might be that first, you know, unification of conscious presence, energy, and that vibration, bringing forth the first personhood, where that is what Christianity is talking about. And that's where Christianity was the only religion to be able to bring forth this revelation, where all along the whole world already knew that we have something like a God or an ancestor in heaven. They also knew about spiritual stuff, which is why Buddhism has so much spiritual stuff. And the Lakota people, the Indians, they've all known we have a great-grandfather. But the revelation of Jesus is to help us understand the Holy Trinity. And so they totally get me, because like I believe I may have been visited by God, and when I was visited, it was kind of like telepathic and through the body, and they said, we are what you call God, we are what you call Jesus, because they understand how I think, and I feel like those are earth words, you know. This is a Christian word, but this can easily be truly a component of nature, and that this is just how we explain it here, you know, that when people are, say, Christian, that's their modality, that's the way they're rolling on earth, and this is the terminology, and so he gets that. And so anyways, when God goes to create something, it's kind of like us saying, let's blow bubbles, you know. So we want to bring the show to life. We want to have an existence. So it's like wanting to blow bubbles, and let's say you got your bubble thing in the ring with the soap in it. It's like the quantum field, or the quantum energetic field, and me wanting to bring life into existence is like God maybe, and blowing on that membrane, right, is that intentionality. And so bubbles come out like we wanted, but they all come out in a spherical shape. And the reason for that is because that's how things work. That's why the planet is sphere shaped, everything's round, and you know, things are shaped the way it is, because that's really how it works, you know. And so, you know, I get the bubbles I want. I don't really get to pick the shape, but at least we have them. Got all the bubbles we want, but then after they float around a while, nature kills them. Forces of nature kills them, so we're a little bit like those bubbles where we're kind of being blown into existence, right? And this, these codes from the universal center are going out into the physical universe, and so we're kind of like it's like the matter's being imprinted upon by this intention to bring forth something, and so we're existing to the best of our ability. So we come out like that bubble, you know, we float along until nature kills us, like we get too old or something runs us over or we die of something. And that's where, you know, God's not like, yeah, make sure they die painfully too, and are afraid of everything to the rest of their life once they see how other people die. That's the difference between where what we call God is that force of nature that's bringing us into the reality that we're in, and experiencing this formality, this format, and then we just, yeah, and then nature snuffs us out, you know. So that's what's happening on the other end. And so anyways, the reason we want to acquire this type of universal mastery is because that sucks, man. Trying to survive in nature is such a pain in the butt, you know. And so the more we get it, again, that brings us back to, you know, improving our ability to survive nature. So it's self-evolution in one hand, and the spiritual understanding is really like, this is the hard part, is learning what love is and how to use love. So that's really what that is, because that's what really, you know, it's like that fire, you know, that's what's really fueling us. That's kind of like, you know, where we need to manage that stuff. So that's another discussion in itself. But the difference between creation and evolution is more like the conscious presence, you know, wanting to live, you know. Conscious presence or God is just like, I just want to live, and we're just trying to be the best shape we can. Otherwise, you know, if God could control everything, we wouldn't have to smell our own poop and see people suffer and have to deal with liars and cheaters and all this jolly rot. So anyways, you guys, choose to evolve and choose to choose life in the sense that we choose to live for eternity through just making the most of it and spreading that love in the true sense around. So that's another discussion, and I will get back to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.